day-to-day operations of GSWA and the consent decree, I would not say that we would not go to court for that. But I don't see that happening.
So suppose the government of Guam affirmed its desire to have the general fund reimbursed, and which is in order to recover. I believe the audit calls it a 75.92% debt service if the rates were increased. What would have to happen in order for those rates to move to those numbers? Would it just be?
Well, what would have to happen is that the DUC would need to take that matter up and adopt the higher rate.
So at this particular point, the PUC would need to if the government decided and asked to increase these rates, then the next step would be some representative, either this board, someone representative of this particular board, or the receiver would have to appear before the PUC and ask for the rate increase, and then get approval.
Well, I think. Well, let me back up for just a moment. The governor and the legislature have the authority to set a rate if they choose to do so. Period. They can just set it. They don't have to go to the PUC if they don't want to. I mean, they make the law, and they made the law that gave the PUC that authority. But if the authority itself were to try to raise the rate, then I don't think there's any question that it has to go to the PUC unless the court intervenes. And again, as I said, I don't expect the court to do that again. But the legislature and the governor have the authority to set the rate if they want to.
Okay, but suppose the legislature and the governor have recognized that the PUC is, the whole purpose of the PUC is to analyze rates in a regulated environment. Wouldn't the next natural step be for some representative of the government, of the Solid Waste Authority, of the management of the Solid Waste Authority, appear before the PUC and ask them and make the case for the rate increase? Wouldn't that be the next logical step?
I believe that what would have to occur is the legislature or the governor. If the PUC seems to be taking the position that they have to have a proposal before they're put there by the proper officials. Right now, we are the proper officials, we being the receiver, right, because of the authority invested in us by the court.
I agree.
If in fact it is our position, and it is our position, and it's the court's position, that this is an internal matter for the government of Guam, then I believe the governor would be the appropriate authority to go to the PUC and say, please increase these rates. If he is not that appropriate authority, then the legislature should make him or someone else that appropriate authority that they can make the authority to go forward with it at this point, until your board has the authority restored to it by the court.
David, I have to be honest with you. It sounds like you're putting the tough decisions on the government of Guam when it's convenient. And
let me just back up for just a minute here. Let's think about this for a second, folks, okay? And that is this. Every decision that has been made to correct a horrible situation in solid waste in Guam has been made by this receiver and by the court. Not a single such decision has been made by the government of Guam. Not one. Now, if the government of Guam wants to raise the rate further in order to allow it to have more money to spend on non-solid waste things, then that's their prerogative. But it's also their responsibility. So you're just completely wrong when you say that.
well, again, I've seen rates increase 3 times without the PUC by the receiver, and we've taken a position.
You've seen the rates increase because the rates have to increase in order to meet the requirements of GSWA and the consent decree. Those are responsibilities of the receiver.
My concern is the
It's not the responsibility of the receiver to free up money in the general fund so the government of Guam can spend it on something else. It's okay with us if they choose to do that, but that's their job, not ours.
You also make an interesting point how every single decision up to this particular point has been yours in the courts.
And that's because the government of Guam refused to make the decisions. You would never have heard of us had the government of Guam carried out its responsibilities. Now, it's just a fact.
Again, a concern I have is the rates are getting to the point where they're unbearable, and we're deferring I just feel the decision's being deferred to the government of Guam now because it's politically convenient.
You know, you're just simply wrong when you say things like that. Because first of all, the receiver has no political ambition whatsoever in Guam. And the court has no political ambition whatsoever in Guam.
Okay, that's my perception.
Well, you're entitled to your perception, but
And then can I just, for the minutes, the latest proposal was if tipping fees were to go up 50% and residential fees 50%, that would cover 75% of the debt service. Is that correct?
yeah, you broke up just a little bit. When you said tipping fees will be what? Say that again.
I'm just asking, the most recent proposal as far as any rate increase to cover debt service was both residential rates and commercial tipping fees would have to go up 50% to cover 75% of the debt service. Is that correct?
I think they go from 170. The commercial is 172 to 225. It was already
That's correct.
it's already lifted from 150 to 172.
The 225 is correct. And I believe the residential goes from 30 to 45 over 2 years.
Over 3 years. And that would cover 75%?
That would cover. Yeah, and let me go back and answer the question that was raised earlier with respect to exactly how much is the debt was the maximum debt service calculated to be. That was, and the rate itself would support payments up to $11,980,000 per year if that rate increase were put into place for debt service reimbursement.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion on the receiver's report of the audit?
No.
I don't think I haven't heard a receiver's report of the other.
Did you want to highlight any of the audit findings, Dave or Chase?
Well, I might just mention that I think the audit is a good audit from a standpoint of its comprehensiveness. Deloitte's a good firm, of course. We were a little surprised at the number of accounting errors the Department of Administration had made with respect to it, and caused the need to restate fiscal 2011 and fiscal 2010. And that's unfortunate, but it is, and I think that the financials that resulted in this, from this, all this work, are the best financials that Solid Waste Authority has ever had in Guam. The findings, for the most part, of the auditors were findings related to contractual issues that are really a matter of disagreement between the way in which the receiver operates and the way in which the government of Guam operates. We have the authority to depart from Guam law under certain conditions for certain kinds of contracts, and we have done that in order to facilitate the compliance with the consent decree when it was necessary, and that became the basis of some of the audit findings. But those audit findings, in my experience, are not terribly significant audit findings. Generally speaking, I was pleased with the results.
Any other questions by board members on the audit?
Yeah, I have one question. Mr. Manning, on the financial statements, the one that says financial statements, additional information, there's a, on page 4 of the balance sheet, under the liabilities, there's a line item that says, of due to general fund. Do you see that?
Which one are you talking about?
I'm on the, it's titled, the financial statements, additional,
I'm sorry, if you could tell me again which page you on?
on page 4 of the balance sheet.
Page 4 of the balance sheet. I'm sorry, my document has the balance sheet on page 9.
No, I'm looking at page 4.
Okay, hang on just a moment. Let me go back to page 4.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the same information on page 9, but I'm just looking,
Oh, okay, I see what you're looking at now. Yeah,
the liabilities due to general fund.
yeah.
Could you just talk about that a little bit? I mean, is that the liability of the reimbursement that you were talking about for the debt service?
Well, that's the combined, first of all, there's 3 funds here. The debt service fund, the capital projects fund, and the operating fund. My comments were directed at the operating fund. But they're due to and due from basically are related to, primarily are related to debt service. And those are entries made by the Department of Administration, and they're certainly free to make those if they choose to, but you can't have a due from without an ability to pay it. And you can't have an ability to pay it without the rate.
So if the so based on this, if the rates weren't increased and the government chose to subsidize, then this particular balance sheet item will just increase year after year?
Well, if they continue to account for it in that fashion, it would, yeah, which would make no sense because if there's no resemblance to reality.
Right. Okay, thank you.
David, the other thing, on the financial statements for year ending September 30, 2012, this is kind of just reiterating what was said prior to Mr. Gale's comments. On page 3, part of the OPA's report highlights specific references where the initial purchase order was awarded, and condition A was from $100,000 to $900,000 during fiscal year 2012. And as you go down, it shows another item was that on December 29 in the original contract, when the amount of $857,750 had 2 amendments that totaled the contract to a little over $2.5 million. So we're seeing significant increases in the purchase orders, and just so the record's clear that these are increases in purchase orders due to your recommendation by the court so that you can facilitate the operations of the solid waste. So these are things that you guys have authorized and increased based off of your discretion in order to complete the operations of the Solid Waste Authority.
That's correct.
Any other questions? David, I had a question.
Okay.
You know, it talks about how operating expenditures increased from FY 2011 to FY 2012 by $5 million. But it also talks about during the same time, the receiver's fees actually dropped during that period by about $1 million. So that means there was about a $6 million increase from FY 11 to FY 12 as far as operations go. I was wondering what accounted for the increases there.
You know, I guess the best place to look at that, and is this Joe?
Yeah.
Sorry, the building. If you go back to, I don't know if you have this document in front of you, but if you go back to page 23 in this document,
Yeah.
It's right there. It's the landfill operations and the waste hauling operations.
Yeah, you see, basically what you got on page 23 is a breakdown of expenditures
Got it.
and comparing the 2 years.
Okay.
Because the labs and landfill opened.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, thanks. That was helpful. I appreciate that.